So we are going to as soon as I find my words. We finished memorial stones. I know. And actually, we could have done 40 weeks on just the history of the Globe Christian Center. But we decided to scrunch it down to like 10 minutes, and so anyway, any questions on the memorial stones before we begin something different this morning? Questions, comments on the memorial stones? Anything that struck you, or anything that Bertha and Carol? Oh, yeah. Yeah, so the rebellions are a part of life, and so all of us experience that from people we love and people we invest in, and so that's part of life. And I lived in Prescott during that first era, and I remember there were a number of evangelists. I think we had 8 or 10 evangelists that lived in Prescott at the time. And Pastor Mitchell called us into his office, actually into an upstairs Sunday school room there on Ruth Street, and he said, "I know your phones are ringing off the hook." And he said, "I just want you to know, wherever you want to go, I'll move you, and I'll take care of you if you want to go somewhere else." And so we all left. I was concerned about one of my friends. I went back in, and Pastor Mitchell was crying. And I asked him about him, and he said it depends on where his heart is. That's what it depends on. Carol?
I don't need them.
Okay.
What I thought was very interesting was that, excuse me, of course, if you want to talk, things like this happen. I thought it was interesting because my daughters were the one that started in this church from the early part of the beginning. And the thing was that I always said to myself, I was never coming to this church. And so when I had started having problems and things like that, that was the first place I thought of, was coming to church.
Yeah.
So I thought it was pretty interesting.
It is, and we come here. I know a number of you haven't been here for the entire 50-plus years, but when you first come, you don't know. And you don't know why we have the standards we have and why we do church the way we do. You don't understand all of that. And so that was brought out, I thought, very well in the memorial stones, and especially the issue of discipleship. If you didn't get stirred on discipleship in those lessons, then you weren't paying too close of attention. Amen. Ed.
Do I need this? And my brother-in-law had the church at Safford, pretty basic,
Right.
and technically Pentecostal, but they like that prayer closet if they were going to make any noise. But Greg Mitchell ended up leading here after all, and he was just a small church, his just solo, but affiliated there with Chuck Smith's group, and kind of founded the same time in that era of the Jesus People movement. But he had 2 sons, and his older son wanted to, I guess, have a ministry. He ended up doing a coffee house, kind of similar to what ours did, but it was funded by the state, so you can't really preach. You can do movies. His daughters went Gothic. I don't know how that happened, but he didn't want to work. Now, I mean, this is the standards, the discipleship. they didn't have it. And my brother-in-law, he was a wonderful pastor, and my sister, well, he's the preacher, she's the evangelist. Isn't that basically the way they put it? But he couldn't let him take over. As he got older, there were people in their congregation that went up or they became pastors, and I guess there may be some churches out of there. But the son, if he wouldn't work, so he couldn't really, he couldn't turn it over to him. His other son, he's kind of my favorite nephew. When we were growing up, didn't get along, but we shared motorcycle and quad stuff. And anyway, he did not want to preach, so he had one of each. One wanted to preach, but he didn't want to work. The other one was quite the worker, and he kept the farm going. But now, in the end, a man basically took over the church. He got the council, and the council gave him the church. And I suppose it's still floundering. There was no congregation. They lost it all. Yeah. But, praise God for his anointing on our fellowship and on Pastor Mitchell and all the rest that had the foresight and the wisdom and the plan and made it work, that now, a solo church, that's as good as it gets. They don't have anything else.
Okay. So the dynamic of fellowship was really critical. Manny?
What I found very interesting was Pastor Mitchell's personal trials that he went through with starting the ministry and sticking to his integrity and his guts, saying we're going to go one way and that's the way we're going, God's way. And that's what I found very powerful, just the beginning of him.
It's always a decision to make in every one of our lives. If we're going to go with the crowd or go with what we've learned and know. And that's where Pastor Mitchell stood out, because all the people, don't tell anybody, but I was baptized at Angelus Temple, grew up in Foursquare, and I know what he's talking about is how the churches were going when he was trying to pastor. And my parents left and numbers of other things happened, but you have to have some guts. You have to have some guts. Cheppy.
Sherry and I cheated a little bit in that we saw the memorial stones twice a day. Well, she was in the hospital and recuperating at home, so we caught them all. And I was thinking about the current situation of our country and of our world, how it's so chaotic. And I thought of a quote, I don't know who said it, but it says, those that don't remember the past are bound to repeat it. Mm-hmm. And after looking at the memorial stones, we need to remember the past so we can repeat it. And everything that Pastor Greg was emphasizing and reinforcing, it just, it was stirring, it was encouraging, it was challenging, it was wonderful. I'd like to share just a short, Ed was there, so back in late 81, early 82, Pastor Houghton got up and said, we have an opportunity in the Philippines, and but we need to raise $6,000. And we were, 40, 50 people in the castle. And so the song leader got up and started singing. We took an offering. Ed Kuhneman, myself, and Joe Ziebel went to the back room to count the money. And, we're separating checks and cash and coins, and Ed totaled it up, gave me the paper. I took it to Pastor Houghton, and he said, we need $6,000. And he simply said, we got it. And there was just a spontaneous roar in the congregation that we could do something in another country. Knuckleheads from Globe doing something for God, It's wonderful.
Minors. In more than one sense. So we're going to start in a new dimension today. And I don't know if this will work or not, but we'll try it anyway. I can't hardly remember how to do a Sunday school. It's been so long. So I remember the first time I heard the comment woke. It was Pastor Warner, and he said, well, that's just so woke. And I was like, it's what? It's what? And so we have come a little ways. Being woke is where our generation has been going for the last 10 years or so. And woke, actually, it's a tense of awake or wake, and so it doesn't make any sense unless you understand the secret language of the political world. And so woke meant to be enlightened about the challenges facing the less fortunate, or a partial list of examples, those sensitized because of racism, those sensitized because of sexism, those sensitized because of ableism, those sensitized to homophobia, and a number of other issues that are raised by this particular crowd of people dealing with human issues. So I don't think there's any question that our nation and our world has issues. And we're going through the political process, which is a complete insanity as far as I can make out, and doing the different kinds of things that somewhere someone has got an issue with. But somewhere along the line, wokeness stopped being about awareness of other people's issues, and it became an agenda. And that's a considerably different process. It's specifically an agenda of identity politics. Identity politics. Your identity is the major domain of your life. And it's actually, if we want to really be honest about it, it's almost Marxism to the max. Marxism divides the world into oppressors and the oppressed. That's how it divides the world. And so everything revolves around those two groups of people. Doesn't really revolve around Republicans and Democrats, although they all are all weird. But anyway, or libertarians. And it doesn't really revolves around the idea that you're in one camp or the other. You're an oppressor or you're oppressed. If you're oppressor, then you're targeted for your demise. Okay, that's kind of where our world is operating. And you'll find out that if you're going to survive, you're going to have to identify with the oppressed. Take on an identity that is being exalted, and stay out of the class that is being accused of being oppressors. Woke's been redefined by the conduct of actually what you would understand as being a minority. Wokeness is being pushed by something you would be probably surprised to find how few people are actually behind whatever wokeness we're talking about. Transgenderism, LGBTQ, XYZ, RSVP. Let me know if you're coming or not. And so here's all the dynamics. It's a badge of political and cultural righteousness. It's a badge of being politically aware and being righteous. And it's operated by a few people making up new rules. It's weaponized by a sanctimonious self-righteousness. Activists are running a toxic agenda operating by a mob mentality. Okay. Taking Goddard, a political dictionary, he says the term silent majority, and we heard that the last couple of go-rounds with the elections. Silent majority refers to a large block of voters that feel marginalized, silenced, or underserved by the political system. Can anybody identify with that statement? A large majority of people who feel underserved by the political system. It's commonly assumed that if they voted en masse, this silent majority would have an enormous ability to affect the outcome of any given election. Well, if the silent majority is true, then that's a true statement. The silent majority could affect the outcome of any election. But the silent minority or majority, well, they're identified by the word silent. Reuben.
The more they just, it's all about me now. They start focusing on, it's all about me and everybody's against me and I need mine and I deserve this and that. And it's not about the greater good for anybody. I just think it's, the more woke, they become blind and it's all about, everything's focused on me and what I deserve and my pronouns and my this and my that. And it's all about me without worrying about the neighbor, without seeing the real big picture and issues in life and stuff like that. That's just my opinion.
You're entitled to it. There's another term that goes along with it. It's canceled, or cancel culture. At its most basic, canceling is actually calling someone out for an alleged offensive speech, behavior, action, something like that. Often it occurs on the social media, and its aim is to silence others. If you want to go online with your blog and explain that, Reuben, you will be canceled. You'd be part of the canceled culture. So what has happened in our generation and recently is that it's become a method of denying anyone the opportunity to express themselves. It's become a means of denying a platform. It's become a means to chill all dissent to whatever that small group is woke to. You are guilty by accusation. That's all that's necessary. Oh, you're so out of tune with the times. Oh, you hate that people. You're just full of hate speech, and so we're going to cancel you. At a big rally at Stanford University. Universities. Okay, what are they known for or supposed to be known for? Free speech. Open opinions are welcome. Challenge the status quo, that's okay. And so they had a particularly important person involved with sexism, and she was going to speak at Stanford, and the school rose up and said, no, she cannot speak. And that's not the only one. Harvard's had it. The other one, Yale, has had them. They invite well-known speakers with particular agendas, and they will not, the students and faculty will not let them speak on a college campus. That's what's happening at Columbia and other campuses today. They've got, Hamas has trained people for several months how to stir up a crowd on a college campus and not allow any other voice to speak. And this is a college campus, free speech. You should have the opportunity for debate, right? Debate. That should happen in our Congress, by the way. But debate, it ought to be a Jewish spokesman on one platform, Hamas on another platform. But it'll never happen that way. Not with the woke mentality that we have in our generation. So, self-appointed cultural police. I had one in my neighborhood. They passed out a letter to all of the residents complaining about one resident. And the letter said, we've polled all of the residents in the neighborhood and they agree. They hadn't polled me. They hadn't come to my house, hadn't asked me what I thought about my neighbor. I could have told them what I thought about them, but they didn't ask. So, but that's the culture that we're in. We have the vigilantes. They're going to protect everybody from hate speech. They're going to protect everybody from some other opinion that they don't agree with. They're going to protect everybody. So, you better get your act together. The vigilantes are coming. Where did it all start? Well, a lot of people see it as starting with McCarthyism and the Red Scare. This is post-World War II. This is when all of a sudden you couldn't function in Hollywood if you were a communist, or if they thought you were a communist. It was the commies are coming, and it bled down into the elementary schools. I remember having bomb scares and these scare alerts, and you had to get away from the windows because the blast from an atomic bomb would shatter the windows and spread it all over. And you had to get under your desk and stay there until they sounded the alarm. You remember those? Yeah. Yeah. And so those were going on, the Red Scare. Richard Nixon made his name there in calling out communist and silencing that dynamic. I am reading, I'm not quite finished with Oppenheimer, mostly because about 800 pages of stuff. I mean, if anybody said anything during those years, it's in that book. And so Oppenheimer, he's the mastermind behind the atomic bomb, the atom bomb, dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, 2 bombs. And so he became a very vocal anti-bomb voice after the war. He was against an arms race. And he was very vocal about it, and very vocal. He had name recognition. He had clout because of his scientific abilities. He had professorships offered him at UCLA, at Caltech, at Cal Berkeley, at Princeton, and other places, including Europe. And so Truman and J. Edgar Hoover began a campaign to get rid of him. And they did. This is what the whole story of Oppenheimer is. And they eventually took away his security clearance, which meant he couldn't operate in any facility operating with atomic energy or anything. And so he and his wife, they moved to the Caribbean and built a little house and lived the rest of their life ostracized from life. And so a lot of people say this whole woke thing, that operation, that ability to function that way, began back with the Red Scare. We are now in a 24-hour news cycle. Ever hear of that? The 24-hour news cycle. That's why you can click on a news story, and when you start to read it, it sounds kind of familiar, and sure enough, it's been on there 3 weeks ago. Because they got to fill up the space. Okay? This is the arena with the newspapers. We need copy. We need copy. We need copy. We need something to take up the space on all these pages to justify our outrageous price for this newspaper. And by the way, the Epoch, which is the Epic Times, was started and funded by the Chinese. Just to give you a clue how this woke thing works. I preached recently a sermon I entitled Ask the Squad. Ask the Squad. Because the dynamic of the woke is to destroy everything. In their mind, in their mindset, this crowd of people, everything is broken. Okay, everything's broken. So the only way to solve the issue is to tear everything down. Destroy it. Cancel it. Church is broken. Therefore, cancel it. And that's the mindset. And that mindset doesn't leave room for, okay, you destroyed it, now what? What are you going to put in the place of America? And so you see this operating in the political arena. We're going to destroy it. We don't want this one. We don't want that one. We don't want this or that or this or that. And so we're going to take it out. We're going to get rid of it. We're going to have a whole new way to elect people and all of that. And so that's going on in our generation right now. Let's throw out the Constitution. Okay. So what do we put in its place? And so we got plenty of people that would put in communism or Marxism. That's what's happening in our culture. Let's throw out the Bill of Rights. You know, we had a number of states that refused to vote to accept the Constitution until they were promised a Bill of Rights. So no, we're not coming into this unite. And so that gave us a great edge on life. Okay. More to the point of us, let's throw out the church, it's broke. Let's throw out religion, it's broke. Let's throw out God, he's broke. Jesus and righteousness and truth. And so the issue is what goes in its place. And I'll tell you what goes in its place. The loudest voice. The loudest voice. Okay, so let's get a couple of scriptures. Judges 16:20. Somebody get that for us. Judges 16:20. Cheppy, get that for us. I need Matthew 24:35 and 36. And Margie, you'll get that for us. And then that'll do us for a while. That'll do us for a while. Okay, so Judges 16:20, especially the second half of the verse.
Judges only has 10 verses.
Judges 16, no, not Judges 16:20. Judges. Yeah.
Oh, hold on. I'm on Joshua.
Well, I've been there for a while too. Don't confuse me with the facts. Just the last half of the verse will work.
Judges 16:20. The Philistines be upon thee, Samson, and he awoke out of his sleep and said, I will go out as at other times before and shake myself. And he did not know that the Lord had departed from him.
Okay, he awoke. When Samson woke up, everything had changed. And that's happening in America right now. The power, the might, the strength, the dynamic. America is kind of waking up. I saw last night or the night before that there's these big rallies in churches for Israel, and there's big rallies in churches for Hamas. And so we're going to have to wake up someday and figure that out. Matthew 24:35 and 36.
Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will by no means pass away. But of that day and hour no one knows, no, not even the angels of heaven, but my Father only.
Okay, so here's Jesus. He's on the Mount of Olives. When are all these things going to happen? Well, they're going to happen, but my word's not going to pass away. And so America will be judged by the Word of God, not by our laws, not by our Constitution or anything else. So let me ask you, so what does woke mean to you? We've got Reuben's opinion, so who else? What's woke mean to you? Vicki and then Coco.
Woke has a lot of different facets to it, or different factions, actually.
Yeah.
And sometimes those factions don't go together, and so I think it's what it's come down to is kind of a tribalism. You've got the LGBTQ, and then the Hamas, and they think they get along, they think they have a common goal, but they don't, because fundamentally they're too different and hate each other, basically. So I think it's like the time of the judges. It's just every man doing what's right in his own eyes.
Yeah, okay, very good. And Coco.
I think basically it's to silence the gospel. It's to intimidate Christians from speaking up on what's true, what's right. And so they have the DEI.
DEI.
And so they will get in trouble if you misgender a student. And so she's trying to figure out, okay, how can I stay true to my faith? And, it's boiling down to they're not going to want Christians in schools and hospitals and the workplace, because how can you basically lie and say this person is a boy when it's a girl and a boy? So I think it's to silence and intimidate the church and to silence the gospel.
That's the bottom line. We're talking about whether or not we're able to say anything. Bertha.
One people, one nation, and it's all going there.
It's all going, Bertha says, to a one world government. We're going to have so many factions, so many things, so many different ways of going around that we're all going to have to get together and say, okay, let's elect a leader. One. And it'll be an election like they have in Moscow. A foregone conclusion. People, we're hearing about a presumptive president here in America. Well, a presumptive president is not president until he's elected. Okay, so they're going to just vote for whoever the mob wants. What happens to the mob when they get their leader? They kill them and they kill each other. It's the loudest voice. The loudest voice. Okay, so synonyms and statements. Adjectives to alert you to social injustice. Enlightened, multiculturally sensitive, aware, conscious, evolved. Our attitudes have evolved. Inclusive. Church is viewed as exclusive, and it's not. Name a religion. Name any religion, and I'm going to say Christianity is not a religion, so name any religion that is available and open to all. Now, I know how the news goes. I know how people go, yeah, well, I don't want to be a Christian because you can't smoke or drink or chase the girls and do this thing and that thing and that thing. That's not how you get to be a Christian. A lot of people don't do those things. You become a Christian by faith alone in Jesus Christ. When you believe that Jesus is the Son of God and He came to save the world, you believe that He's coming. You believe in Jesus Christ. That's how you become a Christian. Not by stopping smoking. Or throwing out your hash. Okay? So you don't become a Christian by those behaviors. When you become a Christian, God might do something in your life and you'll become a new creation. But you can't do that in any religion on planet Earth. To be a Muslim, you have to be born one. Otherwise, you get a little rider that says you can attend the things and do this and that with them and all that. But you're not really one. To become a Jew, you have to be born a Jew. Although they did allow the God-fearers to come to their synagogues and different kinds of things, but they weren't. You're not really a Jew. Okay, and so that's true in the world. Our history, since our founding, this country has embraced cultural philosophies. America has embraced these philosophies that have set us apart from other countries and cultures. One person has said, at its core, America is built on the idea of meritocracy. That is the idea of merit. You get ahead when you earn it. Okay? Founded on the principle of rewarding hard work and talent. Those who add value to the nation reap rewards. Those who don't add value to the nation are not rewarded. Now, that's not exactly how we're operating today. We're going to reward those who don't work and don't add to the nation out of the wealth of those who have. Okay. Those are called taxes. I know you're all in love with taxes. Okay. And so there's a dynamic we have to understand. We are allowing the loudest people to carry the day. The loudest voice. That is the activists, who, activists, by the way, don't always speak for the majority or represent the majority, and they will often change the definitions of the culture. They'll demagnetize your moral compass. Go ahead and figure that out. That means your moral compass will just spin wherever it wants to go. Undercut the cornerstones of our society and success. They'll change the markers of what made America great to some other kind of a marker, some other kind of place. So experience teaches. This is a great country where hard work pays off. It really can pay off if you don't run amok of the Marxist cancel culture, which is where America is headed if we don't wake up. Victimhood is a wasted mindset. That's a wasted mindset. You can march up and down the streets with a big sign, I'm a victim, I'm a victim, I'm a victim. And people will go by you at 65, 75, whatever the absence of police will bear down the road. If you listen to nonsense and substitute other people's thinking for your own, then you'll sacrifice your destiny and your self-determination, which God gives you as a gift. God gave you a mind. I used to call it the tyranny of the minority, because they had such loud voices. Someone else has coined the term, it's a tyranny of the fringe or even the unhinged. Because of, Riley Gaines, she's the swimmer that lost to Leah Thomas, even though they tied the exact same, and they gave the gold medal to the trans person. So she got a minor victory in court a couple of days ago, some court, and it'll go on and on and on and on. So, but if you listen to nonsense, trans people are not trans. They're opportunists. That's what they are. They're opportunists. I can't beat you in the pole vault as a man. I'll beat you as a girl. Poor soul. Okay. Changing values. Okay, let me give you some rundown and we'll have time for questions. Following values that people say are very important to them. People say patriotism. Yes, that's very important to me. In 1998, 70% of people said that. In 2019, 61% said that. And last year, 38%. 70% down to 38%. Patriotism. Religion, 1998, is very important to me, 62%. 2019, 48%. Last year, 2023, 39% say that religion is very important to them. Having children, 1998, 59% thought that was important. 2019, 43%. 2023, 30%. Half of what it was in 1998. Should you be involved in the community? That's very important to me. 1998, 47%. 2019, 62%. 2023, 27%. Money. You might expect the trend to go up here. 1998, money is very important to me. 31%, 2019, 41%, 2023, 43%. How concerned are you about fringe groups? How concerned are you that they're trying to hijack and displace your core values? They're trying to hijack and displace scientific findings. They're trying to hijack and displace America's view of history. How do you feel about that? It's very disturbing, 60%. A little bit disturbing, 28%. Not very disturbing, 10%. Not at all, I don't give a rip, 5%. Any comment there? Vicki? If they're listening, they can start to wake up, yeah. And they are in certain small areas. Anybody else want to? Carolyn. The survey is across the board. Okay, there's no particular age group. They have them for age groups, but the younger they are, the more radical these dimensions. Ed.
I will not answer a survey. That's how it's skewed right there.
No, I know. I get it. At the bottom of your ticket, there's a survey. If you'd fill it out, and my name is Dean, and so at the how was this? How was your experience today with this website? I hate them all, and so how did this go? And so I never respond. Will you stick around and take the survey? Nay. Okay. And so, yes, they miss a percentage of people, but they have surveys that figure that out too. Okay. Carl Menninger. Anybody know who that was? Carl Menninger was America's psychiatrist in the 1970s and 80s. Author of 1973 book, Whatever Became of Sin. He tells a story in that book. He says, on a sunny September day, 1872, it's not yesterday, stern-faced, plainly dressed man stood on the street corner in Chicago on the busy loop. As pedestrians passed by or hurried by, he would solemnly lift his arm and to the person next to him solemnly cry out in a strong tone, guilty. Stand on the street corner, busy intersection, guilty. Then resume his pose. Without change of expression, he returned to his stance and for a few moments, and then he'd repeat the word with a raised arm as someone walked by, guilty. The effect of this strange j'accuse, to murder the French language, I accuse, it had an eerie effect on those passing by. Some would hesitate, look away, and then hurry up. Others turned to someone nearby and asked, how did he know? Or how did he know? Guilty before whom? Is there a cop following us? Am I guilty of borrowing or embezzling? Guilty of unfaithfulness, guilty of evil thoughts, guilty of evil deeds, evil plans. Some no doubt thought, I can make it up. I'll make it up. I'm sorry, I'll make it up. I can pay it back. Some probably thought, okay, I'll apologize. I'll quit. And others said, I hope the children don't see it. A lot of people. There was one of the Cruden was the author of one of the Cruden's dictionary and Cruden's concordance, and he would if he saw anybody violating one of the city codes, he would cry out from across the street, "Guilty!" and then chase them down and see if they couldn't get arrested and put in the stocks. So the Hebrew prophets gave out the same kind of word. Then they'd hurry on. So some common themes, and I'll give you a chance to enter in here. Malaise. Malaise. General feeling of being sick, not having energy, uncomfortable, feeling something's wrong. what's wrong with society, and accompanying that feeling, I can't do anything. I can't change anybody. There's nothing I can do. When a growing portion of the nation's youth loudly proclaim defection, I'm out of here. Proudly proclaim defection from everything. When even the most traditional and conservative campuses seethe with perpetual turmoil. When 2 successive presidents worry about the credibility gap. The credibility gap. Then we are left with trouble. When the credibility gap means that a significant number of Americans think their president is a liar. When the country is racked with fear, foreboding, and hopelessness, when we had better declare a state of spiritual crisis, for the alternative would be to declare that irrationality and disorder constitute our normal and preferred national condition. Now, that quote came from Carl Menninger, and not recently, because he was on the scene in the 60s, 70s, and early 80s. And so he's talking about that kind of a dynamic that when the nation votes liars in, they must be happy with it. That's what he's saying. Daniel Borstein, director of the National Museum of Science at the Smithsonian, says we have lost our sense of history, lost our traditional respect for the wisdom of ancestors and the culture of kindred nations. We've been flooded by screaming headlines and hourly televised news of dissent and revolution. We haunt ourselves with the illusory idea that we are a great nation. Arthur Schlesinger, Albert Schweitzer Professor of Humanities, improved methods of medical care and nutrition have produced a population crisis, nor can we omit the extraordinary moral revolution. So we'll talk about a few things. We'll talk about money, we'll talk about health care, we'll talk about a number of things that have fallen into the woke category to a great deal of problems and trouble in America. So as we close, just any more question or comment? Quick question or comment? Willie?
I thought it was interesting a few years back when the, I guess the woke cancel culture got an awakening when Budweiser tried that beer commercial. And I remember the media was just going crazy with these, what's wrong with the people? And it's like, is that the silent majority that finally said, okay, we're going to say something, or not say anything about it, but our actions are going to say something? I thought that was pretty good.
I think it was cool. And the silent majority, it couldn't have included drinkers, but they're a little bit more of a majority. But anyway, that, and now they're in a crisis in California because they raised the minimum wage $5 an hour. And those kinds of things are awakenings of a common group of people that have to go to the grocery store and buy groceries. A group of people that have to live in what they're creating of our society. And so, yes, that's very good. Okay, next week we'll see what else I feel bad about.